One day, a woman named Dinda was about to deliver her baby, but since her husband Dika was still working, Omen and Fikri, Dika's friends, took her to the hospital instead. Shortly after, Dika came and immediately accompanied his wife into labor. Dika is Dinda's true love. He worked as a waiter in a restaurant. Dinda, on the other hand, worked as a staff in a private company in Jakarta, but after she got pregnant, Dika forbade her to work. They lived in Dika's parents' house, and since they were still staying at Dika's parents' house, Dika's mother, Mrs. Tari, used to interfere in their household affairs. She was known to be fussy, but that didn't mean she didn't love them. Only her husband, Mr. Nurul, could calm her down. After a while, the labor went successfully and their first child was born, who was given the name Dara. Happiness was shown on their faces as they welcomed the birth of their baby. After a few days, Dinda was discharged from the hospital. Then they returned home and back to life, their usual life again. But there were changes that slowly but surely were felt by only Dinda. She always stayed up all night to calm Dara. She always asked Dika to take turns looking after their daughter, but Dika always ignored it and reasoned that he needed to sleep because he had to wake up pretty early and get ready for work, while calmly scolding Dinda for staying up all night in the morning without even realizing his mistakes. Dika's attitude made Dinda upset, but that's not all that irritates her. Even Mrs. Terry often said that she was an incompetent wife. At the restaurant where Dika worked, he had a friend named Sanusi who often helped him give reasons to his boss when he was late. His boss was known to be very grumpy and wasn't hesitant to fire his employees should they make the slightest mistake. It was proven when one of the employees there looked asleep and was immediately fired by him. Not only was grumpy, but he also hated it when he saw his employees doing nothing in his restaurant. Even though the restaurant was empty of visitors, all the employees there had to stay busy all the time. After a long day of work, Dika went home and straight playing video games with his friends instead of helping Dinda took care of their baby. Dika's habit made Dinda upset as he seemed nonchalant to his wife and daughter. He was more concerned with his hobby of playing games with his friends. At this moment, Dinda vented her trouble taking care of the house and their daughter while Dika was just having fun playing with his friends. The next day, when Dinda just woke up from sleep, she was shocked to find her child disappeared. She panicked and looked for her child and saw her with her mother-in-law and was fine. She immediately approached Mrs. Tari while asking why she took her daughter without her permission. Mrs. Terry instead scolded her because Dinda didn't realize when she took her child. Fortunately, at that time, Mr. Nurul calmed the situation and tried to calm Dinda from his wife's attitude, and after that, Dinda took her child from Mrs. Tari. After all the changes in her life, Dinda experienced baby blues where she felt more emotional than ever. She could easily panic about any things. This happened because she felt very tired of taking care of Dara, while her husband just ignored her. Even her mother-in-law always blamed her. In the evening, Dinda was waiting for Dika to go to the hospital for an appointment for Dara's vaccination, but turned out Dika went to Omen's place and stayed there to play video games and charge his phone that ran out of battery. Dinda had reminded Dika that tonight was Dara's vaccination, but after a long wait, Dika had not come home. She tried to call him, but his phone was not active. She then decided to go to the hospital alone without her husband accompanying her. Upon meeting the doctor, Dinda asked the doctor about her unstable condition after she gave birth to her first child. The doctor told her that she was deliberately experiencing baby blues. This was what made Dinda's feelings change frequently due to her tired condition of taking care of her first child, but this is common for every woman who just gave birth. The husband should be the one to calm the wife down when needed, but Dinda thought that Dika was not the type of husband that cared about his wife and child. He only cared about himself and playing video games with his friends. At his friend's house, Dika finally realized that Dinda had been calling him and found a message from her. At that moment, he finally remembered that he had to take Dara to the doctor for vaccination. He immediately went to the hospital to meet his wife. Upon arrival, Dara had finished the vaccination and Dinda looked very annoyed because he ignored his daughter's health and let Dinda go alone to the hospital. Dika kept trying to apologize while explaining that his cell phone ran out of battery, and he went to Omen's house to charge the battery. But who would have thought that Dinda's anger caused Dika to get emotional too, and they ended up arguing. Dinda was at the point of exhaustion while she was taking care of her child alone, and Dika refused to help her take care of Dara, but Dika instead vented his emotions too and said that he was also tired all day working to provide for his family. The argument between them started to heat up. Driven by their anger, the two wished they could change places so that they could understand their feelings. Dinda wished so that Dika would understand how hard it was to take care of the household, while Dika wished so that Dinda could feel how hard his job was. The argument turned into a curse and triggered a mysterious event. They actually changed souls. As soon as they realized it, they panicked and scared. They didn't know what to do to return to their bodies and how to do their respective activities. Dika never knew how to do Dinda's job to properly took care of their child and household, while Dinda never knew how she should go through the work activities that Dika had been doing all this time. They decided not to tell their parents and carry out activities as usual, but this accident, fortunately, took them closer. Dinda, who was in Dika's body, taught Dika how to properly take care of her daughter and gave guidance, while Dinda, who was in Dika's body, still had to go to work, though she made Dika look more feminine. Dika also directed Dinda about what kind of work she would do while at the restaurant. As soon as Dinda made it to the restaurant, Senyusi, who saw Dika that looked feminine, began teasing him. Unfortunately, when Dinda was in Dika's body, she was told by the boss to work overtime. Dinda firmly refused while saying that his wife had just given birth, but unfortunately, his boss didn't care and instead forced her to work overtime. At this moment, Dinda tried to argue with her boss, but unfortunately, she got a warning from the boss. Dinda was forced to work overtime. On the other hand, Dika had no idea how to properly take care of Dara and decided to hire a babysitter, while he instead invited his friend to play video games with him. At night, after a day of activities, Dinda had come home from work and told Dika that she received 2 warnings from her boss and was suspended for 3 days off from work. Of course, that made a big cut in the salary. Dika was shocked to hear that and was worried that later he would be fired. Dinda, who saw her husband, panicked, then tried to calm him down and made sure that Dika would not be fired. Dinda asked for a solution from Dika so that she could return to her body. Hearing this, Dika had the idea to ask his friends for help to find a shaman so that they could return their souls to their true bodies. They then went to Omen's place and told his friends that their souls were switched. At first, nobody believed them, but after proven, Omen suggested they go to a shaman and asked for his help. The next day, Omen went with Dinda to the shaman's place, hoping he would be able to return Dinda's and Dika's souls to their original bodies. But at that time, Dinda was not sure about the shaman, especially when the shaman wanted to spray her with water from his mouth. She felt disgusted by the shaman and left from there while nagging at Omen. On the other hand, when Dika was with Fikri, he told Fikri that he couldn't breastfeed his child because the milk didn't come out. Hearing this, Fikri had an idea to invite Dika to meet his ex-girlfriend Poppy to ask for breast milk. Upon arrival, Dika told Poppy his purpose, which was to ask her breast milk for his child. Hearing that, Poppy was happy to give her breast milk to Dika, and after getting the breast milk, Dika returned home. When he got home, Dika immediately prepared the milk for Dara, but at that time, his mother stopped him because she didn't want her grandchild to get someone else's breast milk. But Dika didn't listen to his mother because for him, anyone's milk didn't matter as long as his baby was fed. Soon, Dinda came home from work and saw Dika, who was about to feed their child. She asked whether it was her breast milk or formula milk, but Dika calmly said that it was Fikri's friend's breast milk. Hearing that, of course, made Dinda very angry because she didn't want her child to drink other people's milk carelessly since she didn't know the health of the person who was giving the breast milk. She immediately threw it away. Her attitude made Dika's mother surprised because she thought Dika's anger was too much. After that, Dinda took her child and went to her room. Shortly after, Dika's mother approached Dinda in Dika's body and advised her not to get too hard on Dinda because Dinda had tried to breastfeed Dara, but her breast milk didn't come out. Dika's mother didn't realize that she was talking with Dinda, but from that advice, Dinda felt that her mother-in-law really cared about her even though she was a bit fussy, but it was for her sake. At night, Dika looked like he was having a hard time taking care of Dara. He tried his best to calm their daughter down. At this moment, Dinda realized that she had been too harsh to Dika and that she should be enjoying her time taking care of her child and not be too overwhelmed with her daily life. She felt guilty because she saw her husband, who was so sincere to take care of their children. The next day, when Dinda was working, the boss called her and she was given a letter. She was shocked to find that the letter was a resignation letter and that she was fired. She panicked and was afraid that Dika would be mad at him. She begged not to get fired because she had just had a child and needed money to provide for her child, but unfortunately, the boss didn't care at all and thought it was the right decision to fire her since she already got 2 warnings from him, moreover, in a short time. She then returned home crying. On the other side, when Dika was with his parents, Dinda's mother came while crying and told him that she had divorced Dinda's father. While crying, Dinda's mother told Dika that Dinda's father had remarried another woman. Hearing such information, Dika didn't know how to convey this information to Dinda without making her sad and depressed. After her condition had calmed down, Dinda's mother said goodbye and left from there. After that day, both Dika and Dinda had very upsetting news to say. Dinda had to explain that Dika was fired from his job, while Dika had no idea how to say that Dinda's parents were divorced and that her father had married another woman, but this was finally uncovered when Dinda returned home and Dika's mother told her that Dinda's parents had divorced. She was shocked to hear that and immediately packed her things up to visit her mother. Dika tried to stop her from desperately going there that late, but Dinda became angry because he didn't tell her that her parents were divorced. She was disappointed with Dika because he didn't try to forbid her parents to divorce. While crying, Dinda decided to leave for her mother's house, but before she left, she said that Dika had been fired from the restaurant. In her mother's house, her mother was surprised to see it was Dika who came instead of Dinda, even though it was Dinda inside Dika's body. While crying, Dinda explained that her soul was exchanged with Dick. At first, her mother did not believe that it was Dinda, but after explaining that, finally her mother believed that it was her. Shortly after, Dinda panicked because her daughter didn't stop crying. Her mother thought that Dara was hungry and immediately went to the mini-market to buy formula milk for Dara, and after her mother came home, Dinda immediately fed her baby. In the morning, Dinda and her mother panicked because Dara cried again. She then told her mother that her baby vomited right after she was fed. Her mother was worried that something bad happened to her granddaughter. She told Dinda to take her child to the hospital, and after that, she immediately contacted Dika to tell him that Dara was sick and was sent to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor told Dinda to breastfeed the baby, but Dinda said that her breast milk wasn't producing. The doctor then said that it was okay to give formula milk to the baby so as not to be dehydrated, but Dinda's mother immediately said that Dara had a seizure after she was given formula milk. She worried that the cause of Dara's sickness was because of the formula milk she gave, but fortunately, the doctor said that the milk was the cause of the sickness, but the doctor told her to breastfeed the baby immediately, and after that, the doctor left there. Dika was angry at Dinda because he had given her formula milk even though previously it was Dinda who forbade him to feed Dara formula milk. Dinda felt it was her mistake and then went outside to calm down. When she was outside, Mr. Nurul approached her. At this moment, Mr. Nurul thought Dinda was Dika and then apologized for the way Mrs. Terry treated her all this time. Indeed, Dika's mother was a fussy person, but that didn't mean she didn't love them. Instead, Dika's mother really loved Dinda. He told Dika not to get angry with Dinda or her mother. Hearing all that, Dinda realized that she had been too harsh. Dinda also realized that Dika really cared and loved her and his children, but his ignorant and childish nature made it seem like he didn't care at all. She finally understood how hard it was for Dika to provide for her and their child. After realizing her mistake, Dinda approached Dika to apologize. She was shocked when she found out that her parents divorced, her daughter was sick, and she was afraid that she would not be able to live normally again. Dika also apologized and said that no matter what happened, he would still love her. Dika calmed her down and hoped that everything would turn back to normal. After saying that, they fell asleep. Meanwhile, without them realizing it, their souls returned to their bodies. The next day, Dinda was awakened by the nurse who was examining her child. Dinda was told that her child's temperature had returned to normal. She was relieved to hear that. She was even more relieved after she realized that she returned to her body. She immediately woke Dika and told him that they were back in their body. They were so happy to be back and that their child had been healed. What had happened to them became a lesson for them to be able to understand and be aware of their respective roles in the family. This incident also made their relationship better, and a few years later, Dinda was pregnant with her second child.